Town Bank Mortgage, NMLS number 512138, is an equal housing lender. This podcast is for informational purposes only. And now, the man born with a 5 o'clock shadow and with the NMLS number 2028-201. He is a gentleman. He is a scholar. He is
Tyler Cralle.
All right, welcome everyone to the latest edition of the Cape Fear Report. I, of course, am the host, Tyler Cralle, of course, loan officer at Town Bank Mortgage. And joining us in studio for this show, someone I've been working to get on the show for a little while here, and he finally found the time in his busy schedule, and that is Luke Waddell. You might know him, former city council member, and the principal and founder of Cadence Realty. And Luke, thanks for being here, man.
Good morning. I thought you took so long to get me on because my hair was better than yours. Is that
well, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, when I was trying to get you on last time, I had to go through the press secretary of Wilmington City and the deputy city manager, and it's a lot easier now.
A lot easier. Just straight to the man.
Just now I got your phone number. It's just a regular. So, I mean, do you miss like not having the chauffeured cars and the security and all that stuff?
Yeah, all the pomp and circumstance that came along with it. No, I'm enjoying this phase of life right now, certainly.
Well, I mean, obviously, running a shop like what you have and growing leaps and bounds. But let's start from the beginning. How'd you get into real estate?
So I graduated from the Citadel in 2011, and then really wanted to be in Wilmington, and started walking around handing out resumes, and stumbled into a local real estate office, and they said, yeah, we'll have you. And they had me answering phones, and then before long got my real estate license and did some management. And then ultimately I've had a lot of people be like, hey, how'd you do it? I want to do what you did. I said, do not do it. Do not do it the way I did. Do not do it the way I did. I started Cadence in 2016. So it's our 10 year this year. And I started it as a vacation rental business. We managed the Waterway Lodge. We took over the Waterway Lodge down like off of Airlie Road. And it was just me. I was one person. And the place was not run very well before. It was a little rough, and the unit owners there needed some help. And so we launched it. I mean, I was doing everything from plunging and cleaning toilets to taking out trash. It was bootstrapped.
That's like a true owner.
It was bootstrapped.
I mean, that's how it gets started. You talk to most of these people. That's sort of how they get started. And so then how did you decide to then get into the real estate?
So the vacation rental business grew a little bit. We took on quite a few other properties, and then we started doing some long-term rental, just your standard property management, and then brought on a few brokers that kind of aligned with me and the kind of the vision that I had. And then we sold the vacation rental business in 2021, really leaned into the brokerage side of the business and the standard property management side of the business. And since then we've been growing both sectors of that business at a good clip.
Yeah, I mean, so it's interesting time to kind of start your own company during the COVID era. Obviously the big question a lot of people have is, do you feel like we finally returned to a normal market? Because you look at the numbers and it kind of seems like it, but it still seems actually like we're still a little under supply from what I think most people moving here would like to see.
Yeah, it's still incredibly busy, as you know. And I mean, obviously we don't have the fervor that we had from 21 to 23. I think that's a good thing. It seems a bit healthier to me, both on the buy and the sell side, and it seems like prices are marked to market in a good way. The ones that move at least are. So yeah, I think we're moving into a healthy market. Obviously, Wilmington is in high demand, and I don't think that's going to change for a long time. Well,
I mean, we're going to get into the numbers in a little bit because they are quite amazing to see how many people have moved here, are planning to move here. But you guys are headquartered on the beach, right?
We are. We're in Wrightsville Beach. We're right on Lumina Avenue, and have been basically since our inception. We enjoy being on the beach. Now through August is a difficult time to have your office on the beach, but 8-9 months out of the year, there's nothing like it.
Yeah, I mean, the meeting's got to get scheduled around bridge openings.
Exactly. Well, I'll come to you.
Well, I mean, Wrightsville has seen quite the change. I think I had Lee Crouch on, and he talked about when he. I got a lot of compliments on that episode.
He did great.
A lot of knowledge, a lot of knowledge. And he said
institutional knowledge.
When he first got into business, I think he said, what, $80,000 is how much you get a house on the beach for back in the 80s. And but what's crazy though is that, one of the things I like to do, because I'm a huge dork, is go back and kind of read old Star News articles and just the history of Wilmington. And you'll go back and you'll see these dead spots in Wrightsville Beach where there was like, I think at one point, this like motel and restaurant, and that sat there for like 15 years, like a vacant lot that no one wanted.
Can you imagine?
And it was like, and that was during the 90s and the 2000s, and they couldn't move it. And you're sitting there going, it is almost unfathomable to think that there was anything on Wrightsville Beach that at one point didn't move.
That no one wants.
Yeah.
I know. It's been really a blessing to be in the Wrightsville Beach market, for as long as we have, and we've got some folks who are institutional in their own way in that market, and it's a different market than Wilmington, but stuff moves quick, and it's easy to understand why. I mean, every time I come over that bridge, it's like you're just struck with beauty.
Oh. I mean, it's we're now at the point now where, of course, obviously there's nothing left to build. So if there's going to be a new building, and you got to tear something down. So you got people paying $5 million for a house they're going to tear down, which is nuts.
Yeah, it is, but they're doing it. So,
Yeah.
and they're coming from all over to do it. I mean, we're seeing a lot of Charlotte and Raleigh, buyers certainly who need a second home, and they're happy to do it.
Well, you look at some of the, more desirable places like, say, South Carolina, like Hilton Head or some of these really luxurious kind of beach spots that have now really gotten so expensive they've priced out like the moderate rich,
right.
like only like $10-15 million. They like can't buy a house there. So it's like they're now looking outside and they're like, wow, Wrightsville Beach, the Wilmington area seems pretty awesome.
Well,
so
North
it's
Carolina itself is on the map in such a big way
100%.
that we're just reaping the benefits of that.
Yeah, I mean it's when you just look at the growth that we've already experienced, and the kind of outer beaches that aren't Wrightsville, because everyone talks about Wrightsville, but Carolina Beach and Topsail and Curry and everyone else is benefiting from that growth too.
I mean, the numbers that are trading in Carolina Beach and Topsail are mind blowing too. I
Yeah.
mean, it's every time I see it, I'm like, wow, there's no way. And then 2 days later, I'm wrong.
Well, and so I've talked to a lot of people here on this podcast that do kind of luxury real estate and sort of what the difference are between selling kind of a regular house of $1 million, which is where we are now, to the higher end of 2, 3, 4, 5 plus. And so what do you see as being kind of the difficulty? Because obviously when you start getting higher prices, there aren't as many buyers out there, and a lot of times you are looking outside the area because there's just not that many people in Wilmington that can go $5+ million for a house. Network's
Extremely important. Attention to detail is extremely important. Professionalism and having been there before is also important. Not that you can't, everybody does their first one, but I've always tried to grow my firm. We only have 32 brokers, and we're truly a boutique firm, and that's by design. I've wanted to bring on brokers who are smarter than me, and I would say our team members smarter than me. If I don't walk into my office every day feeling a little bit inferior, I think I've done something wrong. So, I mean, I'm constantly impressed by the level of professionalism that our guys and girls bring to the office every day, and I think that's what's necessary in any part of the business, certainly, but in the higher end luxury market, that's what's the real differentiator. And you also, what's interesting are in not just residential real estate. You have people who do commercial, people who do multifamily, and so I mean it does seem like that is kind of valuable, especially for this area where, people, I remember after COVID, everyone was talking about the decline of commercial, and it was like, not here. And then, we'll get into the numbers here in a second about multifamily, but multifamily's been an explosion. And so having people in your office, instead of having to turn people away and go, oh, you can go to this firm, I mean, that's got to be a benefit. Yeah, we have people who are focused in various niches of the industry. I think that's a benefit to our clients, certainly, because if, one of our brokers is working with with somebody who does have a question or is interested in going into a different sector of the real estate market, we can answer those questions typically in house. Yeah. And so how's the transition been? So obviously you got in the business originally as kind of looking to be sort of like an agent, and then now you're a small business owner. So I highly doubt you're doing a lot of actual real estate transactions. Yeah, I'm the lowest producer in my firm. And so how is that? They make fun of me about that also. Do you get like an award for least production? You're a loser. Yeah. So, I mean, that's got to be kind of interesting to go from, this is your original path, and then you're like, I'm going to be a small business owner. And it's just, you're not doing kind of the stuff that you think about in the real estate business, which is talking to clients, and you're more focused on running a business. Yeah. I mean, my job every day is to work for the people who work at Cadence Realty, and to make sure that we have the right tools in place for them, which I think we do. We have a pretty phenomenal tech stack for as a smaller firm, and then to support my staff members and my brokers, and to be there, they can lean on me when they need it, but ultimately to give them the tools that they need and make sure the business is functioning in such a way that they can be successful. That's my entire role every day. I have, still have some folks like, hey, I'm sorry, I'm calling you about this. I'm like, no, this is literally my whole job is to be here for you. I mean, I work for you, and that's pretty fun because I'm constantly learning from them and the things they're doing every day.
Now you're seeing this kind of interesting thing happen in real estate right now, where you have a lot of firms, you mentioned might be boutique, might be a little bit bigger, but they focus on kind of one area, right? But then you're also seeing this other side of the real estate where you're seeing this massive expansion. Companies are, buying up firms all over the country and getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And so what do you see kind of happening there? I mean, is your goal to expand? Is your goal to stay kind of, what you're doing?
I have kind of always said, we don't want to be the U.S. Army.
Okay.
Yeah, we want to be the Navy SEALs. Now, there's a place for the U.S. Army, and there's a lot of those firms in town, and they are big, and they're everywhere, and they service, multiple regions, and they do a great job. That's not the vision that I have for Cadence Realty. I want us to be a cadre of professionals. That's a small group that's effective and nimble, and I think that's we've turned a lot of people away, not because they were bad agents or they didn't work, but or bad staff. It's just like you don't fit kind of the direction we're going, and we don't want to be humongous. Not to say we're not growing. We're growing really organically and growing at a slow pace, and I'm perfectly happy with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of fascinating because you are seeing, some people really succeeding, sticking with that business model, and because real estate's local. I mean, it's kind of like politics, right? Where it's all local. And because you see these headlines, and like today I just saw a headline about like 12% of Florida's home sales are like in fire sale territory.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. And so it's sort of like, but people go, wow, everyone's moving to Florida. I'm like, well, yeah, Palm Beach maybe, or Miami, right? Where you're seeing a ton of growth. They were saying how Tampa is seeing a slowdown, and Florida's a huge state. Sure. And, it's kind of like North Carolina, where, we're very different than, say, like Charlotte or Raleigh or the Outer Banks or Asheville. And so you can't just say, oh, well, Asheville's having problems, so Wrightsville Beach is having problems. And so I think that's one of the benefits of being a local firm is a national firm might not really have a handle on a particular market because they are so big.
Yeah, and they're making maneuvers on a macro scale that works for their business as a whole, but ultimately each market is a lot different. Yeah. And I do think that as you see, the success in Charlotte and Raleigh, that we see residual benefit from that because these folks in Charlotte and Raleigh want to have a beach house. True. They want to be down here too. And I just think as those markets continue to grow, that we'll continue to reap those benefits.
What's even crazy too is that it's not only just sort of regionally within North Carolina, but just even in this area. Wrightsville Beach is a very different market than Monkey Junction, which is a very different market than, say, like the country club area or downtown. And it's like, those are all very different markets that are acting, differently on what's happening right now.
And we have brokers who focus in every one of those sectors. Some of them certainly go more towards the Wrightsville Beach, some of them more Midtown area, some of them Carolina Beach. We do kind of touch all those because they are in our various submarkets, and so it's important to know your submarkets and to be able to help any client who's looking for assistance there.
Now, I wanted to bring this up because I'm still fascinated by this stat that came out recently. I'm not sure if you saw it on Twitter, but Jay Parsons is a guy I follow who looks into kind of multifamily. He's a Real Page Market Analytics. And Wilmington was number 2 in the country with regards to the apartment inventory growth since COVID. Wow. Where 35% of Wilmington's current apartment stock had been built since 2020. Huntsville, Alabama, which I don't really know why, was number 1 with 40%.
Interesting. Okay.
But now, of course, obviously, when you were a city councilman, you heard a lot about the apartments. Yeah. Once or twice. Still the biggest issue on Facebook. But you see that and you think about, wow, that's a crazy amount of growth. And yet people still talk about how high rents are, which shows that was growth that was meeting demand, because if there wasn't demand, then rents in this area would be dirt cheap, because that's an insane amount of growth.
Yeah, the demand is definitely there. I will say anecdotally, because we manage a fairly large property management portfolio, and I will say that since the 21-22 boom, where you couldn't price a rental high enough, that has slowed. We've kind of gotten back to I think a more normal market from a rental rate standpoint. That's a really good thing, and that's due in large part to the increase of supply. There's a lot of folks who say had too much supply, and I get it. I've seen some of that too, and we don't have to build on every square inch of
yes, that's very true.
of Wilmington and New Hanover County. We can do it in a thoughtful way, and that's what I think we're seeing a lot more of. And those are exciting to me, is these infill developments, these smaller scale infill developments. Anywhere from 2 to 50 units. That's on the property management side. That's kind of what we've been focusing on, is managing a lot of those because they're too small for the your Gray Stars and your Hawthorns, and those do the bigger 300 unit kind of developments. But we're well positioned to manage those, and we've done a really good job, full lease up and then ongoing management from there. And so I've kind of gotten a firsthand look at how the rents have not escalated since some of those units are coming on board.
Well, so one of the sites I like to use is apartmentlist.net, and they provide metro data for a lot of metro areas, and Wilmington's one of them. So the median rent was, I think, $1,293 in April, and that was up 0.2% year over year.
Okay,
and is actually down about 7.5% from the peak of COVID, when I think we hit almost 1,400.
So my anecdotal,
was correct, and so I was backing you up. But here's what's funny. So Jay Parsons, who was the one that tweeted this, said this when talking about the areas that seen growth. He said, interestingly, no rent-controlled markets made the list.
Funny how that works.
Well, I mean, it is kind of amazing, because to me, the issue with growth, I get why people are upset it happened so fast, but the real question I actually have is, why wasn't it happening before? Because it seems like we were underbuilt, and 2008 didn't help, obviously, with that caused. But it's almost like I said, there were properties and land, like right now they're building on Wrightsville, which a lot of people aren't happy about, those big apartments that were going up.
They're large.
But that piece of land was completely underutilized the entire time I've lived here, since 2000.
I was not in office when that was approved. I do make that point.
You know what? You got to do that. You got to go like this, though.
Oh, sorry.
I did not approve that.
I did not approve that one. Yeah, but that one is a lot.
It's very well. It's amazing when you drive down there, the shade that you're now experiencing.
I'm hoping, and I haven't seen renderings or anything, but it seems like the outfit that's doing it is going to do it first class, and I'm hoping once it's finished and finalized, that it's at least aesthetically pleasing.
Well, I think that one of the big issues that people actually have is not so much with the multifamily. It's a lot of the designs, and you see this a lot on Twitter and stuff, where people will make fun of like how cookie cutter they've gotten.
Sure.
Where when you see people that kind of utilize the maybe existing space, put a little green space in there, little tree canopies,
make it pretty.
Yeah, have like walkways and benches and parks, and all of a sudden it looks way more residential. It looks way more kind of like something that you would see like in a suburb.
Landscaping's an amenity.
Yes.
And for so many people don't think of it that way, but landscaping, whether it's a single family home or large scale multifamily development, landscaping is absolutely an amenity. And you go through your autumn halls, and you're like, oh my God, like, why isn't every neighborhood like this? There's trees everywhere. A lot of that, and I was digging into this while I was still in office, but wasn't able to act on it. But
you're scaring me. You remind me of that scene from Margin Call where he's like giving the guy the thumb drive, like, hey, I was looking into this and I didn't have time to get to it. Good luck. Good luck. Be careful.
We had some well-meaning tree ordinances that were put into place years ago, but ultimately what that did is make it so that developers were, there's a saying, show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome.
Yeah.
Developers were not incentivized to keep trees or to plant trees. I mean, there's these massive radius around, a live oak tree, for example. If you're going to be putting a piece of infrastructure in, like a road or underground infrastructure, that you have to stay outside of that. If you go into that radius, then you have to pay for that tree as if you cut it down. So if I'm a developer and I'm going to have to pay for that tree as if I cut it down, it's probably coming down.
Yeah.
Right. So like these are just little incentive tweaks that I hope, and I think they are. I had spoken with the city manager about this while I was still in office, and the mayor, and everybody was kind of on board that, yeah, we've got to do some tweaking on that. I haven't kept up with whether or not that's happening. I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
But little things like that can go a long way for making sure that the aesthetics on these projects are there.
Yeah, I mean, I really feel like that's a lot of it, is that people they feel like it's not matching with what they would expect.
Right.
And then, of course, density is also an issue. And I think I'm glad you mentioned the infill, because I think one of the other things that we can do is sort of look at these residential neighborhoods where you could put maybe, 2 townhouses on a spot where there was just a single family, but they'll look,
or some small scale commercial.
Yeah, exactly.
That's serviceable and increases walkability. That's something I'd like to see more of.
Well, I think that would also be a great thing, because, one of the benefits that we've seen has been sort of like, Leland, for example, I talk about this, I think probably every show, is that the growth that they've seen there with their commercial development has helped the residents, because they no longer have to drive over the bridge and come into Wilmington for everything.
Which is good for the Wilmington taxpayer too.
Exactly.
You're not having, all that demand on your infrastructure.
Exactly.
Still there.
Yes. Well, there's some things you still have to come into town for, but it has drastically reduced the amount of times they have to.
You drive into Leland and you're like, everything's new.
Yeah.
It's all brand new.
Yes.
It's beautiful. They're doing a good job.
They are. And now you're seeing it in sort of Pender County. And so it's like, that's another thing where people can walk to a grocery store or to the coffee shop or to a CVS or wherever, then they will feel better even with the development, because it's not like, I have to go sit in traffic for 30 minutes.
They're getting something out of it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the big thing. But yeah, the apartment issue, you are seeing a slowdown though.
Certainly.
It does feel like it, because
land has gotten really expensive.
Yes. Well, they always say that, the cure to inflation is, high, the cure to higher prices is higher prices, because eventually you get to the point where people can't buy stuff.
Exactly.
And so eventually we do get to the point where a developer goes, I can't make enough money, so I'm not going to buy it. And so that's why, I'm a big fan of the market working.
Yeah.
Because instead of a politician artificially saying no more apartments, the market will tell us how many apartments we need. And we do seem to be reaching that limit.
I think so. And by the same token, we have to take care of the people who are here.
Yes.
And make sure the quality of life. I live here, you live here. Make sure the quality of life is protected. There's a way to do that. There's a way to balance that.
Well, and so the numbers, because we just saw, I think, a recent report about the growth that we've seen in Wilmington. But looking at census data, the population from 2020 to 2024 in Wilmington increased by 8.5%. North Carolina was 5.8%, and nationally we saw about 2.5% growth. So Wilmington is growing faster than even North Carolina.
Is that New Hanover County, or was it just
I think that was the metro Wilmington area.
Yeah.
So
because the city of Wilmington is not growing at such a high clip.
Yeah. I think it's because
2%, something like that.
Because I think we're running out of places to put people.
Exactly. we're there.
Yeah. Well, and I do want to get to that as well, but I did want to ask you about earlier this year they had mentioned. The county obviously planning for growth, and a report came out that they were saying that the draft destination 2050, was saying that by 2050, the population is projected to reach 333,488. That would be an increase of 107,000 people, 48% increase in population by 2050.
Lord.
And so, as someone who was in city council, that's one of the things you guys planned for. That is a just crazy amount of growth. And then to your point about protecting the people that live here, the concern I always have is that the people who are moving here, they live in a different world than a lot of the people that live here do, which is their incomes are tied to major metropolitan areas in a lot of cases, or they're retired, they have a nest egg. They aren't limited by the constraints of our economy.
Sure.
And so when they move in here and we say, okay, we're going to stop building, and so we're going to have less houses, that's going to push home prices up. And they can pay them. The people that live here, while they may already have a house, their kids will not. And their kids will not be able to buy a house or live here. They're going to have to move out of Wilmington. And that's what I don't want to see happen. I don't want to see Wilmingtonians who have been here a couple generations
get priced out,
get pushed out of their own home.
Yeah. And I think that, the real benefit to Well, what I really want to do is praise New Hanover County for forward thinking and for getting out in front of it.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, I mean, basically what you're saying is they're coming either way.
Yeah.
Right? They're coming.
Yeah.
And so getting out ahead of it and getting the infrastructure that we need, you know, some of the new the endowment drop about the schools, like investing, the bond coming up for the schools. I mean, they're kind of getting out in front of this in a big way, running the proper infrastructure to the places that ultimately will be built. And that's due in no small part to the leadership of the commissioners and the county manager doing things the right way and planning for the future. I mean, that's ultimately the job, and that will, I think, mitigate a lot of the constraints that you would see if you were chasing the 8-ball, and you didn't plan for it.
Well, I think that's one of the complaints that you hear from a lot of people is that we seem to be very reactive. Yeah, where people we're reacting to the growth after it happens and not planning for it. And unfortunately, planning for it means you got to go, hey, listen, this is what's going to happen. And that number is going to scare a lot of people.
That's terrifying.
But we need to say this is happening. And so we have to plan accordingly and not, because I mean, you look at every major roadway, there's bypasses being planned, there's bridges that need to be fixed. And one of the reasons is because we kind of weren't really focusing on infrastructure.
Right.
And so to say, hey, we're going to see all this growth population there, we're going to need a bigger road there. And let's build the road before the people get there.
Absolutely.
That's way easier to do.
It sounds really simple. But it hasn't always happened that way. I commend them for their leadership and their forethought on this. It's really impressive to see, and I'm thankful for it.
Now, speaking of the county commission, let's talk about right now we're seeing quite an interesting debate on the county commission and the city council over property tax.
Yeah.
And
once again, I would commend New Hanover County for keeping the property tax rate where it is.
Well, it looks like the city is not going to do that. And you wrote an op-ed for the Business Journal. And here, I'll quote from it real quick. You say, by most accounts, this 20% hike that we're looking at is the largest proposed tax increase in the city's history. Imposed remarkably at the very moment, every sitting member of council has declared Wilmington to be in an affordability crisis. It will cost the owner of a median valued Wilmington home an additional $256 per year on top of county taxes, on top of an inflationary environment that has squeezed every household in the region, which is true. And 20%, that's a big number.
Jump.
That's a big number. And one of the things you get into is the Skyline Center. And let's talk about that because you point out, and this was one of the reasons why I was actually supportive of it, as I believe you were, because it was like, hey, we're going to build this thing and then we're going to sell surplus property.
It was a good real estate deal.
Makes perfect sense. And then all of a sudden, we didn't do the other part.
Yeah, I'll get to that. I want to talk a little bit about the affordability component because I think there's just a disconnect there, and I don't think it's on purpose. And I didn't want to write that op-ed, but frankly, the media was not talking about the largest tax increase in the city's history, and I thought that was important for everyone to know it was happening. When that op-ed came out, I had more people reach out to me saying, this isn't real, right? Like, this isn't happening. I'm like, no, it's happening. Like, it's happening tonight. They're voting on it. This is Tuesday. They're going to vote on it tonight for the first time, and then they'll ratify it 2 weeks from now. And to me, what a lot of people don't think, they say, oh, it's only $250 more a year. Yeah. Well, one, that's the median household that's based about $400,000. Find me a $400,000 house valued right now in Wilmington, okay? But that let's say it is $250 to $500. You're taking $250 to $500 more in property tax a year. What's that going to do to somebody's escrow? You know, you're anywhere from $25 to $50 more a month that their mortgage just went up.
Yep. That's
a big deal. You know, I'm buying diapers every day right now. I'm telling my wife to, clip the coupons at the grocery store. And there's a lot of people who really, that $50 a month, they don't have it.
Well, and also from a lender standpoint, we're already facing higher insurance costs.
Certainly.
And people are already, because of the higher prices in the Wilmington area, we're getting close to ratios on a lot of these people where if they go a little bit up, they don't qualify. And so an extra $20, $30 a month on top of the increased insurance, on top of the mortgage, could price people out of being able to buy a home. And it sounds crazy to people, but I have had cases where people are on the 0.99%, and if they go over one more, they don't qualify.
Well, there's that. And then there's also the people who are renting. They're renting these apartments, they're renting these houses. And if all of a sudden an apartment complex gets hit with a 20% increase in their tax rate, next year, that renewal is going to look a lot different for that tenant who's paying $1,500 a month is now paying $1,700 a month for the deal to make sense. This goes right to the heart of affordability, and everybody talks about it when they're campaigning. I did too. Yeah. It's not affordable. We need to make it more affordable. This is how you do it. You stop jacking taxes up, every year. We had multiple tax increases when I was in office. I voted against every single one of them. At the same time, we increased salary for the council members, year over year over year. I voted against every one of that. I never took one of those salary increases because I feel like you couldn't vote against something and then take the money. Yeah. And again, they're going for a 20% tax increase this year, the highest tax increase in the history of the city of Wilmington. Simultaneously, they're increasing their council salary by 15%.
Are they really?
Well, that's been the latest discussion. So
I did not know that.
Breaking news.
Well, and what's interesting to me is that it is being, and this is sort of funny, because every time there is a tax increase, it's like, what about the police officers? It's always whenever you talk about increase, you got to pay. And if there's ever a tax cut, if you say we got to cut expenses, the police officers. It's always the police officers, as if that's the only thing the city pays for. But what do you think about that argument? Because I've seen that argument. Kevin Spears made the argument. Cassidy Santaguido made the argument in an op-ed in an interview with WHQR. So what do you think about that argument?
We did the largest increase, my second year in office, we did the largest increase to our first responders, police and fire department, 17% pay increase. And that we could have done that without a tax increase. We may have done it without a tax increase, but we did that, and it was a big deal. Mm-hmm. There's still a gap there. I think we have a real issue, specifically in the police department. We're like 40 plus officers down. That's a public safety issue. Yeah. I'm all for getting them where we need to be. I think, I campaigned on that when I was running last time. I think that's important. I don't think a blanket increase for the entire organization is probably the most pragmatic solution. And that's what's happening right now. I mean, it's like a $16.7 million increase on the salary side, and a lot of those salaries are your highest paid employees who are getting quite a bump. So I don't want to get into all of that, but certainly we need to pay our police and fire department what they're worth. They have a very difficult job. Yes. I've did quite a few ride-alongs with them, and the stuff that they have to deal with is heavy and serious, and they don't get the respect that they deserve many times. So I would certainly support them completely and support some increase for them. My position is more a 20% blanket increase of the tax rate.
Well, I mean, but it's also, we're in the private sector. I don't know anyone that's getting a 20% bump in their pay. Not right now. Not. Yeah, I know. I mean, it's you're just not seeing it. But I do want to talk about the surplus properties because Kevin Spears in his op-ed had said one of the reasons why they ended up not selling the properties was, I think he mentioned, I want to make sure I get the quote correct. But I think he said the city, he mentioned that Wilmington was not a real estate company, which I thought was kind of weird because you had mentioned that you'd hired a firm to sell the properties. So he seemed to be implying that,
we're not in the real estate business.
Yeah. I was kind of confused. I mean, because the city buys and sells stuff all the time. Certainly. Yeah. So what do you think is happening with the surplus properties? Because I mean, that seems like that would solve a lot of problems.
Well, it would solve a lot of problems, but the principal argument is that I made a promise, and the rest of the council at the time made a promise to the taxpayers that's how we were going to make this deal work. And we have, I don't know, probably $10, $15, $20 million worth of real estate right around the Skyline Center that was always supposed to be sold. We had a large commercial real estate firm that was representing us in one of the parcels. Some big numbers came in, multiple offers, and then this was right around the time where I was transitioning out of office. They were declined with no input from me. I was not privy to it, and I was in office at the time. They were declined. The listing was pulled, and we said thanks but no thanks. I think that could go a long way to mitigating some of the infrastructure expenses that the city is looking at right now. They have a large CIP, it's capital improvement program, for our streets and bridges and the things that the city owns to make sure that they're maintained properly. And a lot of those are big one-time lifts, and selling some surplus property would do that, but it would provide continual revenue to the city in the form of tax base. I mean, if you put
Exactly.
a $50 million skyrise there, that's going to be a big tax number that's coming in
versus vacant lot that the
doing
county owns
nothing.
or city owns.
That's doing nothing. And to do it while simultaneously saying, oh yeah, the every taxpayer in the city is gonna have a tax bill going up 20%. To me, just adds insult to injury.
So I'll just say what Kevin said, just so I don't get mischaracterized. I'm not mischaracterizing. He says, for instance, the pause on selling parcels adjacent to the Live Oak Pavilion was made prior to the current council's composition and was rooted in a simple principle. The city of Wilmington is not a real estate agency. At a time when many residents express concerns over overdevelopment, that perspective matters. It is also unrelated to the current budget proposal, which, as you noted, is probably, we could use some of that money for those one-time costs, not
directly related.
Salaries. But yeah, but the overdevelopment argument, so that's another one where it's like, all right, we're going to keep those vacant because we sell them to a apartment complex. They're going to build an apartment. Everyone hates apartments. And so
there's only one place in the city that has no height restriction, and it's right there.
Yeah.
It's right there. That's the place for density.
Yeah.
That's the place to go up. Some other council members had previously wrote op-eds saying that that's where they'd like to see density. So yeah, I'm disappointed in that argument. I think it's short-sighted. I think it's foolish, but not my call.
Well, when I had Dane on about a year ago, that was the one thing he did mention. The one place where he believes we can still see a good amount of growth and not have it impact people's lives and traffic would be downtown, because so much is walkable. And it does seem like the growth that one of the real benefits, it's kind of funny because I always joke around with people when you talk to people who are from Wilmington, and some people will go, I hate what's happened here. Like, this place was so awesome back in the 80s. And you talk to some people and you're like, what was downtown like in the 80s? And they're like, oh, well, there was like strip clubs on every corner, and like adult bookstores, and stores were run down, and like downtown had gotten to become quite a scary place. And so there's a lot of rose-colored glasses with some people about how great downtown was. I'm not saying other parts of the area weren't great, but downtown has become just a jewel.
It's great. It's great.
And it's been because of this growth, and there's still potential for it without it causing those major problems that most people associate with growth.
Downtown's phenomenal. I lived down there for a while I was building my house, and we really enjoyed it. I will say I was on WDI board for a while. I think you are now, and a lot of the more recent successes of downtown I would attribute to Christina Haley.
Oh, absolutely.
She's a real driving force.
Yeah.
And she gets things done over there, and it was a real blessing to work with her and see her passion for downtown. I think that's important to have those champions downtown. And of course, some of the foresight of previous council members and mayor of what needed to be there was really important. But yeah, I would agree. But to that point, that's where the growth should be. Especially when there's a bunch of vacant land that could be sold, and the taxpayers could reap the benefits.
Well, Tom Davis, who's actually the chair of WDI, owns City Block.
Yep.
And I think he told me that when he built that in 2015, 16, it was like the first new apartment complex in like 30 years downtown.
Goodness.
Which is crazy to think how much has happened on that north side.
Since then.
It's been so much. But it was, downtown had really become, and I will say, as someone who was opposed, openly when I was on the radio to the Wilson Center and some of these other projects, in the convention center, I can now see that there has been a benefit to those places.
Oh, yeah.
They still might, lose money, which was one of my issues. But what they've done is they brought people downtown, which then brought apartments and other businesses. And so I can see how, as someone who's usually against kind of government getting involved, sometimes government lighting that match can really do something to cause an area to kind of blow up a little bit.
I saw that, in various scenarios when I was in office, because I share a lot of those concerns, keep the government out. But we can be a catalyst, for success. We being the government can be a catalyst for success, provided you don't, get too far into it.
It's a fine line. It's a very fine line between things being great and going bad. So what do you see kind of happening going forward as this market sort of normalizes? Like I said, still some of the areas where people want to live. You're still seeing shortages in inventory. Something comes on the market, you're still seeing multiple offers. And so what do you kind of see moving forward over the next 5 years with Wilmington and this growth that we're now expecting?
Yeah, I think it's going to continue to be a really healthy place to do business. I think it's going to obviously continue to grow. Mm-hmm. Values are going to continue to increase. It's a good place to own real estate. It's a great place to live. And it's where I want to raise my family. And I think a lot of other people do too, and they should. And so, I'm bullish on Wilmington.
So do you see, with regards to affordability, how do you see that balance kind of moving forward? Do you see sort of the outer areas kind of playing a bigger role? I mean, they already are. I mean, every list I see about growth, it's like Myrtle Beach area, which is clearly a reflection of Brunswick County growth, is helping us, because I mean, if we didn't have Brunswick and Pender, home prices here, I mean, the median price would be $1 million easily. And so we are clearly benefiting from that growth. And the other day I drove up to Sneads Ferry for an open house, and I hadn't been up there in a little while. And the amount of construction and growth that is happening, we are benefiting from in Wilmington.
Yeah, I think a lot of the affordability will be, in the outlying regions. And again, now that New Hanover County is planning for that in the northern part of the county where there is some capacity for growth, that's where I would say the more affordable units are likely to go. Of course, there'll still be projects that I would assume come up in the city, but yeah, I mean you're gonna drive for affordability, I think.
All right, before I let you go, I got to ask you the question. What's your political future look like?
I'll say.
Are you going to run for president in 2028?
My wife did say I had a real Gavin Newsom thing going when I left the house today. I am really enjoying, more than I thought I was going to. You lose an election, and it's a little bit like getting dumped. I mean, for a couple of days, it was really what I worked really hard. What happened?
Usually it's good to go on vacation.
Yeah, I did. But I have a 3-year-old, I have a 1-year-old, and an incredible wife, and we have just had so much more time together. And I've had time for business and time to do these things I want to do, time to get back in shape a little bit, and just be with my family, and I'm really enjoying it. Not to say I won't be involved in some capacity in the future. I don't know what that is and what that looks like. I think if something like that opens up and an opportunity avails itself and the people want me there, then it's something I'd certainly consider. Right now, I'm in no rush, though.
Well, I will say, when you talk to people on the city council and, county commissioners, and the amount of people, I don't think people realize how many boards you guys are on, and then the amount of reading that you have to go over every board, every meeting. I mean, it's easy to criticize you guys. And
it's deserved.
I made money for a long while doing that. But it is, it's a lot of time. It's people go, oh, well, they make a salary, and it's like, it's not even close. You do the hourly pay. It's not even close. So it is a lot of work. So when you're not having to do it, I can see why you're like. You
certainly shouldn't be doing it for the money. I would not say that you should be doing it for the money, and it should never be that. And that's why I kind of was always anti the increase in pay, because I think you should do it for the love of the game, right? But it is a lot. I mean, I was on the CFPUA board. I was vice chairman of the Metropolitan Planning Organization, and then a bunch of other boards. And so it's always, every day you have something. And so I have a lot of respect for everybody who's doing it, even folks that I don't agree with, and because it's a sacrifice. Particularly when you have a young family, it's a sacrifice. Yeah. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. But so I'm enjoying my time right now, I'll put it that way.
All right, well, we'll see what happens. But Luke, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Enjoyed it.